Uh, Good evening and welcome to the Candidate Forum for Minnesota Senate District 43 and Minnesota House Districts 43A and 43B. I'm Linda McLoon. I'm a member of the Roseville Area League of Women Voters and a resident of Roseville, and I will be moderating this Meet the Candidates Forum. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I want to thank you, all of the candidates, for joining our virtual candidate forum. It's kind of a new format and kind of interesting, as you will see. The League is a nonpartisan volunteer political organization for both women and men, organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage informed and active participation in government. This forum is part of our ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. This allows you, the voter, an opportunity to hear candidates discuss issues that are important to you. There's never enough time to cover all the issues in a limited time and setting such as this. If your questions are not addressed, we encourage you to contact all the candidates directly. We hope that over the course of this program, you'll learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do if elected to serve in the Minnesota House or Senate. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping important issues to keep our community strong. If you're interested in learning how to make a similar impact, I encourage you to visit the League of Women Voters website at lwvmn.org. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters, and the sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement by the League for any candidate. This year, the citizens of Minnesota Senate District 43 and House Districts 43A and 43B are electing representatives to serve in the respective Senate and House. All the candidates listed on the Minnesota Secretary of State website as registered candidates were invited to participate, and we have 7 of the 8 candidates with us this evening, so thank you to everyone who's participating. We are using questions that have been submitted to the League of Women Voters website in advance. Only questions that are directed to all candidates are going to be used for tonight's forum, and the questions, of course, all become property of the League of Women Voters. And we also just remind all of the candidates that answers to the questions similarly need to focus on the questions themselves. And while a candidate's record may be discussed, we don't tolerate personal attacks because we're all nice. So I will now introduce all of the candidates. The first, there are 3 individuals running for the Senate seat in District 43, 2 of whom are here this evening. Doug Dalbin-Speck is not with us, but we have Charles or Chuck Wiger and Bob Zick as our Senate candidates. The 2 candidates for the 1 seat in House District 43A are here, David Babin and Peter Fischer. And there are 3 candidates for the House District seat 43B in Minnesota, Jordan Herzog, Leon Lillie, and Antonio Nerios. So the order of the forum will be as such. The candidates will each have 2 minutes to give an opening statement. Our timekeeper, Cecilia Warner, will call verbally 30 seconds, and then she will say stop or time's up when your time is complete. In other words, the 2 full minutes. Of course, you can finish your sentence, but we will enforce this rule to make sure we give the same amount of time to each of the candidates. I will then ask questions with 2 minutes allowed per response, and I have randomly rotated the order in all different directions. At the end of the question period, you will have 2 minutes for closing statements, which will be given in exact reverse order from the opening statements. So I hope all our candidates are ready because we are going to begin with the opening statements. Again, you have 2 minutes for your responses. We will start with the 2 candidates who are with us tonight for Minnesota Senate District 43. We'll start with Chuck Wiger.
Hi, I'm Chuck Wiger, and I currently serve as your state senator. I live in Maplewood, and I'm a lifelong resident of our district. I attended area schools and graduated from North High. I also graduated from Hamlin University, earning BA and law degrees. I'm an attorney, and most of my career was at Securian Financial, where I recently retired. I have 5 kids and 5 grandkids. We love nature and the outdoors. I have been actively involved in our community throughout my adult life. I chaired the District 622 School Board, also the Ramsey County Soil and Water Conservation District, served on several area commissions and committees. I also coached youth sports for 25 years. As state senator, I've been put in leadership positions, chairing the Education, Policy, and Finance Committee, the Elections Committee, and Legislative Commission on Water. I have worked closely with the community and have sponsored many proposals which have become law, helping our area. Education funding, including all-day kindergarten, our state's accountability program for world's best workforce, transportation improvements, including Highway 36, Century College programs, the East Metro Safety Training Center, the Tubman Center addressing domestic violence, the Veterans Memorial Park in North St. Paul, the ban on TCE, and many more. We get results. Looking ahead, my top priority is COVID-19. The focus needs to be testing, protection, treatment, reopening, and recovery. I support responsible public policy based on data and science, not political expediency. As part of recovery, now we need to pass a robust bonding bill, investing in infrastructure, creating thousands of jobs. Other priorities: great schools, education opportunity, affordable health care and prescriptions, clean environment and energy conservation, and promoting equality and ending racism. Together, we can accomplish more. Thank you.
Thank you. The second candidate with us tonight for Minnesota Senate District 43 is Bob Zick.
Hello to everyone. I am Bob Zick and asking for your vote this fall for Minnesota State Senate District 43, which includes Maplewood, North St. Paul, Oakdale, Matamidi, Willerny, Birchwood, and White Bear Lake. I've been part of Senate District 43 all my life. I have had a home in Maplewood, Oakdale, and my current home in North St. Paul. I have financial property and business interests in Grant and Matamidi. Unlike my incumbent opponent, who has lived off of and been in government for the last 30 years, I have worked in the private sector building homes and businesses. I would hope you would ask yourself the question, are you better off today than since my opponent has been down at the legislature? Do you have everything under lock and key? Do you worry about your safety? Do you worry about if you call the police, there will be police to respond? Are you being taxed out of your home? Are your children receiving an education worth $20,000 per year we pay in school taxes? My opponent, while serving as the former chair of the Education Committee and using the power of the chair, harmed children and parents. He stopped legislation I and others brought forward to prevent schools from being built on Superfund toxic dump sites. He also stopped legislation that would require parental notification. While I will fight for state education dollars to follow the students so parents have real choice, my opponent will work to stop it. He will support endless tax dollars being thrown at endless huge bonding bills to build bankrupt ice arenas in Matamidi like Vadnais Heights. As I speak, my website, bobzick.com, is being built. I will show all my efforts on your behalf. It will link you to the 26 years of the weekly live TV.
Thank you. Thank you. So sorry, 2 minutes. And there will be ample time to answer other questions, and you will also, of course, have closing statements. We'll now move to the two candidates for the Minnesota House District 43, and we'll start with Paul Babin. Remember to unmute yourself.
Yeah, remember everybody, when you start speaking, please hit *6 to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Your time will start now, Paul.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for taking the time to attend this event and giving me the opportunity to be here as well. My name is Paul Babin, and I'm running for Minnesota House District 43A. I grew up in St. Paul, in the Highland Park neighborhood near St. Catherine's College. I'm the fourth out of 6 siblings. I graduated from Highland Park Senior High in 1984 and finished the aviation maintenance program from Winona Tech in 1993. I currently live with my partner and her daughter, and her other daughter, who we've also helped raise, is moved on and getting married. I currently work for MnDOT in Metro District Traffic Engineering Division. I've held different positions in this organization since 1997. I've served as a plow truck driver, purchasing, inventory management, foundations drill crew, and currently serve as project manager and designer. In this position, I've learned to work with many internal and external stakeholders, functional groups, municipalities, counties, townships, utility companies, and consultants as well. I've been involved in projects ranging from $50,000 to several $100 million. In this position, I've gained knowledge of the inner workings of government, budgeting, and the legislative process. From around 2005 to 2015, I served in trusted positions in AFSCME, which is a public sector employee union. I volunteered as a steward and served elected positions as secretary, vice president, treasurer, and auditor. I'm running because I'm concerned for the future of our children, grandchildren, and all generations that will follow. It's our responsibility to ensure they will have a free country that affords everyone equal opportunities to achieve their dreams and the right to be safe. I've sat by and watched as their cities are allowed to be burned and looted under weak leadership at the state and local levels. I see story after story about small businesses being ruined by this behavior and the arbitrary policies being directed to these small businesses by executive order. We need law and order. I will support law enforcement, our rights to self-protection, fiscally responsible government, and co-equal branches of government working together. Thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate your support.
Thank you. The second candidate for Minnesota House District 43A, Peter Fischer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Peter Fischer, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity at the forum tonight, and to those of you that are listening. It has been an honor to serve the Maplewood, White Bear Lake, Birchwood, Willardy, and Monomoy areas as your state representative. I was raised here, and I've raised my family here. I attended Hill Murray High School, Lakewood Community College, which is now Century, and St. Thomas University. My current job is I worked for the last 13 years as the CFO of nonprofits serving youth who are experiencing homelessness in small nonprofit world. And in the small nonprofit world, I'm used to having to do it all because there are not a lot of extra resources. So I've learned to be very judicious and frugal with dollars. In the local community over the years, I've served on the Human Relations Commission in the city of Maplewood and the Parks and Rec Commission. And one of the things I learned very clearly when working on these commissions as a volunteer is that when we got things done best for our local community, it was by bringing people together to get things done, taking the time to sit down, listen to everybody, find the common goals that unite us, and then to move forward with solutions that have solved problems within our local community. I've also done that at the state level. I've worked across party lines, finding common ground to address issues in our local community and state, whether it was dealing with the contamination issues from water gremlin, helping save the rail line to Hugo in Minnesota, up here above White Bear Lake, that saved a lot of jobs, addressing ADA frivolous lawsuits, addressing water sustainability, and also addressing affordable housing. I know that Minnesotans care deeply about our state and want to see one another succeed. Working together across race, religion, and geography, we can strengthen our communities by improving outcomes for all of us and organizing together so we have the power to decide our future, just as we've done in the past. By working together, we can make sure that nobody is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from our candidates who are running for Minnesota House District 43B. We will start with Jordan Herzog.
Well, first, thank you to the League of Women Voters for making this happen. It's obviously been a very unique year, and I do appreciate your willingness to develop a workaround for us to have the discussion. My name's Jordan Herzog, and I live in Oakdale with my wife, Carrie, and my two little daughters, who are ages 1 and 2. And we actually have a third due on the way shortly after the election, so there's a possibility I will be watching the returns from a hospital room. But I grew up in Red Wing, Minnesota, and I graduated from Red Wing High School. After high school, I obtained a bachelor's degree in pastoral studies from North Central University in Minneapolis. And then I served as a pastor for about 5 years, which eventually led me to Arizona, where I decided to do a career pivot. And I went to Arizona State and obtained a bachelor's degree in accounting. I'm currently a Minnesota registered CPA, and I work in accounting for a large public company that's headquartered right here in the Twin Cities. And I'm also in the process of obtaining my MBA. And I decided to run for the office for 2 main reasons. The first one is because I'm a concerned citizen. I have not been pleased with the continual increase in spending at the state government level, and then the subsequent push for additional taxation, primarily by the DFL. Our education system also has some glaring disparities between the African American and white students in terms of achievement. That deeply concerns me, and I'm really just not seeing any adjustments to how the system operates to rectify those issues. Second reason I'm running is because I believe my life experience and skill set would make me an ideal candidate for the job. I developed strong analytical thinking skills through my time working in private business. And then I also spent a big chunk of my life serving people as a pastor. I believe that these experiences would make me a pragmatic and compassionate representative for my neighbors and district residents. So I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd.
Thank you. The next candidate for Minnesota House District 43B, Leon Lillie.
Hi, everyone. This is Leon Lillie. I'm currently serving in the Minnesota House, and I'm running for re-election. It's really been an honor to serve North St. Paul and Maplewood and Oakdale in the legislature. I live here in the community with my wife, and we've raised our kids, and you'll see us on the parks and trails and in our community and up at the Veterans Memorial Park. And, we just were there the other day for the ceremony that Senator Wiger and I helped get the money for and develop. But, I live here and I care about the community, and I'm greatly honored to be the current state rep. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for doing this. We don't get a lot of opportunities. They used to do a debate at the high school, and we don't have that anymore. And so this is kind of it. And I quite honestly don't know my opponents that well. And, I'm happy to hear one of them's having a new baby. And so that's exciting. But currently I serve on a bunch of committees. I've earned through some seniority the positions on Ways and Means and State Government and the Rules Committee and on the Bonding Committee. I'm also chair currently of the Legacy Committee, and just to refresh your memory, that a couple of years ago, the voters of Minnesota passed a constitutional amendment to tax themselves to have money to go to parks and trails, clean water, arts, and oh, wow. Okay. So anyways, we're well positioned for the future because we left a pretty solid budget, and I'm proud of the work that we've done. We've really tried to move some quick reforms for police and help Minnesota. And I think I'm well positioned to serve this area for the next 2 years, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you. And the third candidate for Minnesota House District 43B, Antonio Nerios.
Antonio, remember to hit *6. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, am I on muted now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it all. My name's Antonio Nerios. I'm not a politician, and I don't describe myself as one. I want to describe myself as a statesman, because I'm here for the state. I'm here for my fellow countrymen. I'm here for, why I served. I'm also a military service brat. I kind of grew up all over the United States. With my parents divorced, my mother kind of landed here in Minnesota, so Minnesota's basically my home. I'm an East Sider and just kind of grew up everywhere. My main focus is to end the peacetime emergency. I don't believe that any of the incumbents done any of their homework, and I don't believe that they're not going to do any homework. They keep voting to keep the peacetime emergency and keep everybody locked down. Some of my platform items are I'm pro Second Amendment. I believe we should bring back education and gun safety back in schools. I'm pro voter ID. If you go to a liquor store, you got to buy liquor and show your ID. I don't understand why we can't do that. I'm also want to eliminate the pay council. One of my issues with that is that I believe some of the incumbents can actually correct me on this if I'm wrong, but some of the names have been restricted on the pay council. On the pay council about a few years ago gave themselves about a 40% pay raise. Now, I don't claim to be a politician, but I've been doing some of my homework here, never been involved in politics before. I'm not quite happy with what's going on. And I think that we're all just, having a wool pulled over our eyes, if you will. I'm also very pro small business. I want to see small business grow. Sorry?
30 seconds. Keep going.
30 seconds. Pro small business. I want to see small business grow, and I think the only way we can get our economy back is by dropping taxes, getting more these regulations out from underneath us, and in growing our small business. I'm also very pro local police department. I like everything local. One of the things that I'm personally want to do as well is return the power back to the cities and get the counties away from conducting our elections and counting on the ballots. I would like to see the cities actually count the ballots and the cities be more in charge of it. I think we should go back to that.
Thank
One
you.
of the other things I want to thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. So with that, and I know 2 minutes seems like a long time until you start talking. So we will now move from our opening statements to our questions for this evening. And and again, I'm going to kind of rotate order around, but right now we're going to start question 1 with Bob Zick, just so you can be ready. As we know, with COVID-19, we've had the result has been decrease in state revenues with a projected $20 billion, I believe, budget hole. At least that's what I was sent in this question. And so how do you think the state should solve this budget problem? And we'll start with Bob Zick. You need
Star
to unmute.
6 to unmute, please. Bob, there we go.
The state budget problem is driven by the excessive spending of the DFL Liberal Party. To blame this all on the COVID Chinese virus, when the government and the governor shut down the state, of course, there's going to be horrendous impact. So, it's this fake news and alternative news that our president talks about. You read it in the newspaper. I just came back from Sturgis, South Dakota. Went out there with 26 members of the Antique Motorcycle Club. None of us came down with the coronavirus, but yet you would read the paper and you would think we were all going to die, that we came back and infected the whole state. This endless recycling of false narratives and this business of putting the people that do have the virus into nursing homes. The approach that the DFL party takes harms us as a society. Let us get back to work. Let us produce. Let us pay
30
taxes.
seconds.
We can't shut the system down. People are experiencing endless stress, suicides. We've taken this problem and created a monster. We need to go back to work. When we had the Spanish flu, we didn't do this, and that was horrendous. We need to go back to work. The governor needs to open the state up.
Thank you. Our next candidate to address the issue of the state budget is Paul Babin. You are muted.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think in order to solve the state budget, key factors would be that we need to look at all our agencies to see where we can save money. I know a lot of money is being wasted. You hear in the news all the time about Department of Human Services. There's a lot of money going out the door there that needs to be looked at. I mean, we really need to look at all departments. I think you can find waste in all of them. Being someone who works in the government, you do see it. We also need to open the economy. If we open the economy, get people back to work, get businesses back going, that's going to generate revenue to the state, and that should help offset some of our deficits that we're facing. We also need to, look at spending. We're overtaxing our state and we're overspending our money. Our budget has increased so dramatically in the last 10 years. So I think there's ways that we can cut money from the government, and that's a possible solution to reining in our deficit, along with opening up the economy, like I said.
Thank you. Peter Fischer.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. We will have a large problem that we're going to be dealing with in the next 2 years of a possible budget deficit. We need to take a look at a combination of things. Number one is taking a look at where we have deficiencies within our current governmental system, and doing that by going all the way down to the line workers, those people who are serving us and doing the public service work on the front lines day in, day out, whether it's the people plowing our roads, if it's the people that are delivering services in our correction system, or the people taking care of processing our driver's licenses, is connecting with them from the very bottom and working our way up, because they see what's going on and they can help provide us with some solutions. The other thing that we may have to look at is taking a look at possible revenue fee increases. And this is not popular, but it's one of the things to take a look at, because one of the things that we've seen greatly since I came into office is the need in health and human services for our aging population. One of the areas that absorbed a huge amount of money very early on was almost $1 billion that went out to the door to address nursing homes. Many of the nursing homes, we were coming off the budget crisis back in 2012. Many of the nursing homes were in a situation that they were going to have to go under. Most of their money comes from the state government and the federal government. And that takes a large portion of the money that we have out there, along with personal care attendants. With our elder population, this is an area that is rising on a very regular basis. And so as a result, if we want to preserve those services that are very critical for the quality of life for our seniors, we want to make sure that we provide the resources to make sure that they are not left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Jordan Herzog.
All right. I would propose a couple things to deal with the budget deficit. I think the $20 billion mark is a little aggressive. I don't think it's quite that much, but I think the deficit needs to be dealt with in a couple ways. First, I would propose a freeze in all spending increases during the current budget cycle, and then also looking into the next biennium after that, continuing a spending increase freeze. Spending's grown pretty significantly in our state since 1998, 99. Our general fund spending's increased by approximately 130%, adjusted for inflation, about 50%. So I think we're continuing to spend money and increase in that area. So I think pulling back and drawing back on some of our administrations and seeing where we can identify cost saving, that's going to be our primary focus to get our budget balanced. I would also propose an audit of all of our major government administrations. I'd like to see third-party auditors engaged so that we can identify potential cost savings and efficiencies. A lot of people read on the news there was a pretty big fraud case when it came to our child care assistance program. That obviously isn't enough fraud to balance the budget in this environment, but it makes you wonder how many more issues do we have across different administrations. So I think we need to identify where those are at and where we can tighten some different areas up. And yeah, those would be my two main proposals.
Thank you. Leon Lillie.
Hi, as I mentioned in my introduction, we've done a really good job in the last couple of years, and I'm pretty proud of it. I've served in the plenty years when we had a $6 million deficit, and, we're looking at some really hard decisions. But right now, as we come into this situation, we've left the state with a AAA bond rating. We built up the rainy day fund, and so we're in a good position. We have to balance the budget every biennium. We're balancing the budget. We're not like the Freds. I don't know if people are paying attention. It's just sad to me how they just print money, but we come together bipartisanly and pass the budget, and there's winners and losers, and ultimately we come up with a plan. The speakers told current chairs, all of us, to start working with agencies and commissioners, and I've been doing that. I was just on the phone today with the Clean Water Council, and they're looking at $40 million left, and we're planning for that, and they're actually looking for the initial 10% just in case. So they're just on the deck to have these plans. So we're looking at these things and being thoughtful, but I'm proud of where we've left the state. Going into this, we're in a good position, and we're going to be able to fight through this but I don't want to shift like we did in the last time. I just will not do that like we did to the education system. So I think we're ready to fight for Minnesota, and
30 seconds.
And I think we have the tools, and we are doing the research now ahead of time. I know I am, and I know other chairs that I've talked to are doing the same thing. Even if we're not in charge, it's just good to lay the base and be ready for these changes.
Thank you. Antonio Nerios. Did we lose him? No. Antonio?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to agree with Jordan on this. I think there should be a freeze in spending. I also believe that, like I was saying earlier, there ought to be more of an effort to get small businesses going, because small businesses actually drive America. It's Main Street America. I also believe that there should be, along with Jordan, that there should be third-party auditors to see where all this money's going. We started this year with roughly $7 billion surplus, and now we're at a $6 billion deficit. I'm trying to figure out where all that money went. I'd love to see where it went. I also believe that we can cut spending by cutting some of the fat off of Minnesota, such as the pay council the DFL just passed through a couple years ago. I also would like to get rid of the Met Council as well. My solution for getting rid of the Met Council is like to see all the responsibilities and duties pushed over to the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Transportation actually give out their duties to the proper state agencies and whatnot. What I also believe is that the incumbents are lacking their due diligence, if you will. And years ago, DHS, with child care fraud going on, they refused to actually investigate more what was going on. We're sending money over to Hamas, and that money is Minnesota tax dollars going to our service members. I'm wondering why my representative isn't up there hollering and screaming at the top of his lungs if he's out there over giving out military, decorations or something. So to sum it all together, I think, I think that we should bring back more small business. I think we should cut the fat, and I think we should cut taxes. I don't need any more time.
Thank you. And finally, on this question, a difficult question about the budget, Chuck Wiger.
Thank you. Earlier this year, as viewers may recall, our state had a surplus of $1.5 billion. And that was the main discussion at our town hall meetings as to how it would be allocated. It was when the pandemic broke loose that things unfolded for the eventual deficit. That said, as Representative Lillie pointed out, we have a rainy day fund of over $2.3 billion. We have an outstanding credit rating, and it's through the bipartisan, stewardship of dollars that it's not going to hit Minnesota nearly as hard as other states. That said, as we go into the next, already the commissioners have taken, I think, 10% pay cuts. You can be sure that each agency, as they develop their budget, will be asked to reduce their amount of spend and come up with options. We must, by statute, have a balanced budget. So we will review the various budgets as they come forward. And what's been lacking in the Republican-controlled Senate is transparent public hearings, open conference committees where we can really let the public be involved in how these decisions are made. So I want to reassure everyone that pre-COVID, we had a very good budget balance of $1.5 billion. And approaching it in the future, we'll go to the rainy day fund because that's what it's there for. And then we'll have a very open, transparent process where agencies submit their recommendations. It will be a balanced budget. Of course, we're against fraud, and any items that can be outed, we'll address that, and I'll support that. And I remind other candidates, we have a legislative auditor. We also have a state auditor that are actively involved in various audits as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're now going to go on. All of these issues are so complex.
Pause for one moment, Linda, please,
Yes, please.
because we lost one of our participants for a little bit. And I will ask Michael or Joe to readmit the phone number ending with 0879.
Yep.
Got it. I don't know what happened.
He is in and he is ready to roll.
Okay, thank you. So Linda, please continue with the next question.
Very good. Thank you for noticing that. I was busy reading my question. So, all right. So with this question, we will start with Peter Fischer. So the legislature passed a compromise package on police reform. Could you comment on the legislation and then speak to what you might think would be the next 2 or 3 steps to support police reform in Minnesota? And again, we'll start with Peter Fischer.
Okay, thank you. In the House of Representatives, we had come across with a very robust means to address police reform. Number one, focusing on reclaiming community oversight. A part of it was addressing reform accountability. In other words, another part was reimaging public safety. And a number of those areas, we were trying to make sure that we are addressing critical training for police officers, making sure that we have the tools that were being put out there to deal with those who are not following proper procedures, working to ban chokeholds, requiring a duty to intercede. Some of the things did not make it through that we would like to see is making police residency reform occur. Another thing that we also want to make sure is to address the issue of when there's a bad outcome, when somebody dies at the hands of police, is bringing together a council of independent people to take a look at what happened in the system and take a look at the system as a whole to see what reforms need to be done in the system, make sure these kind of outcomes don't happen in the past, and then allowing the reports to be made with the majority and minority reports so that we can figure out what we can change to make sure that we can prevent bad outcomes in the future. We do know that based on work that the Legal Women Voters had done, that there are problems that have been happened in police accountability. And some of the things that they identified as crisis intervention training, making sure that we're going to do more to educate people and figure out ways to deal with those who've got mental health issues. And also some things that we were trying to get to that did not make it through is also dealing with those who've got autism, because all those things present differently when people are in crisis.
Thank you very much. Again, the issue of the recent legislation and police reform, Paul Babin.
Yes, I believe the proposal to fund or abolish police are an extreme response that will only make our communities less safe. I think we need to direct our focus and resources to the prevention, investigation, and prosecution of crime, and hold the criminals accountable for their actions. I truly believe the vast majority of police officers are honorable and do their best job, and they're not, unfortunately, currently law enforcement's being looked at harshly because of the acts of a few, and I think we need to remember that and not scrutinize all police officers, because they are good people. They're our neighbors, they're our brothers, our sisters, our mom and dads. The majority of them are good people, and we should not attack them. A few have made mistakes, and we need to figure that out. And by defunding police, that isn't going to solve this problem. I think we need to look at, instead of defunding, we need to figure out and talk to them and see what they need for training. We need to help them train on better enforcement procedures, mental health issues, crisis intervention, and just overall better training than the use of excessive force. And maybe de-escalating procedures would be also additional training that should be presented to our officers to help them do their job better. As I would support those types of reforms going forward with, again, better funding for our police and better training opportunities, not defunding them. We need to maintain law and order. That's all I got.
Thank you. Bob Zick.
Yes. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you
Yes.
are.
Okay. Police reform. Well, the statistics and the numbers don't support all this hatred towards the police. That in any profession, including the state legislators, you have one or two bad apples. When you want to do some reform, how about reforming young people who grow up without a father in the home? How about a society that condones and supports anarchy, rioting, looting, and burning? We need to focus on the problem. I want to be able to call my police department and expect an officer to show up. I don't want my officers vilified by these do-good legislators that want to gain points by backing Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and every radical group that comes down the pipeline. This has to stop. And as a spokesperson, I want people to understand how we are being abused, that society is better. I don't want our schools to teach hatred of America. I don't want our schools to teach that this is a terrible country. You know, I want our kids to learn the Constitution. I want our kids to learn about civil rights, to read and know how to write in cursive, how to balance bank accounts, and most importantly,
30 seconds,
critical
right.
thinking. I don't want our country vilified. Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck Wiger.
First, I'd like to say I do not support defunding or dismantling the police. I do not support rioting, looting, or setting fires to business. That isn't protesting at all. That's a crime, and that brings more pain, and there needs to be consequences. I believe we made progress this session, and it was done in a bipartisan way with the parties working together. And that's my style as a legislator, to build bridges, to work together. Is there more to be done? Yes, there is. And I want to note that, you know, key areas as we look to the future will be in training, and the police are talking about that as well. All professions can improve in their training. We can take a closer look at the entry into the profession. We can look at review procedures as well. But what's important is that we are working together and not against each other. Our country is so divided right now, and there needs to be a healing process where people can talk civilly at the table. I want to do a shout out for so many of the police in our community. Just over the summer, I've been involved, Representative Lillie as well, at a drug house in North St. Paul, where the police were active every day. And finally, the North St. Paul leaders took action to get rid of that problem. But and I'll also say I've been to 2 funerals for fallen police officers, actually with Representative Lillie, Officer Crittenden, Officer Bergeron, who gave their life. And so it's important that we remember that the vast majority of these people, they put their life on the line. I'll continue to work with them, and I wanted to share too, my record's been, fully reviewed in terms of what I support on these police issues, and I have been endorsed by the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association. Thank you.
Thank you. Antonio Nerios.
Hey, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Awesome. I don't care about endorsements. What I'm doing is coming from the heart. And are there bad apples that exist in every industry? I think there is. Can something always be improved? Yeah, I believe that there's always an improvement somebody can always make. But I also believe that these politicians, the current incumbents, aren't doing their homework. If they were doing their homework, they would actually contact some of these police officers that work in the front line and see what works and what doesn't work, what should be applied and what shouldn't be applied. I scratch my head from when I was a kid that Officer Friendly used to come in my school, talk about DARE and stuff like that. And now what has happened now between here and where I'm at now in our district. If we think about it, the incumbents have lacked responsibility. The incumbents have lacked the leadership that's needed. I work with some of these with the EMTs. I work with the police officers. I work shoulder to shoulder and hand to hand with some of them. And they're great people, and they understand bad apples exist. What I think needs to happen is definitely accountability. If we got a bad apple, we got to remove them. But I believe if we're going to do anything with police reform has got to start from the front lines on up. It's got to start with the education. And it just can't be from a political point of view. It's got to come from the actual frontline members who know what's wrong and would like to see the change. I believe in American lives matter. I don't believe all lives matter in a respect that, hey, you got to become an American. An American is the greatest thing you can actually be, because anybody can become American. All these other groups trying to tear apart our country, trying to tear apart our districts, rioting down the street from me. These are issues that our political incumbents have lacked and have no leadership in it. I think with my military service, with my background, I have the education, I have the experience to bring it all back together and bring back peace, order, and go from there. I don't need any more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Leon Lillie.
One of the positive things that has happened this summer because of these special sessions is that we were able to work on some of these police reform issues right away. I mean, it's hard not to watch the death of Mr. Floyd, murder of Mr. Floyd, and not realize that something's got to be done and how horrible that was. And you need to balance that. You know, as Senator Wiger mentioned, our community lost many police officers. We've lost Officer Zick, Officer Bergeron, and a good friend of mine, Officer Crittman. It's just sad to know that that's going on and the risks that they bear. And I'm not for defunding and abolishing the police departments. I can't imagine society with that. Clearly we're not, I watch the news like everybody. We're not ready for that. And, but I'm proud of the police accountability things we did, that's been mentioned already with both parties getting together, improved training, use of force. Chokeholds are, we're not going to be doing that. I mean, for obvious reasons. Duty to intercede. So if you say, hey, knock it off, to a coworker. So, I mean, we know that these things are going on. So a meaningful reform has to be done. We've done some. We're going to keep looking at it. We had a Representative Fischer and I were on a phone call today, and the chair of the House committee said some of the things we did, and we're going to do more. We're not done. And I've talked to the local police chiefs and of mayors and councils about the issues, and I'm willing to work with them. But I fell out of a tree about a year ago, and I thank police officers. Matter of fact, the firefighter would rather I don't hug them when I see them to thank them. And I definitely value what they do every day to keep us all safe. And so I take a bit of offense.
Thank you. Is that done? I couldn't hear, sorry. And Jordan Herzog.
All right, well, first of all, I just want to say in no uncertain terms that I support our police, and I believe that the overwhelming majority of police officers are working to serve and protect our society. And I did receive the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association endorsement with that view in mind. In regards to the police reform bill, there are a couple things that I thought were good that came out of that. Number one, I support increased mental health training in the bill. I think that's something that we've really uniquely experienced over the last couple of decades, the rise in mental illness. So more training does need to take place for our police officers to be equipped to handle those situations. Also, I think the idea of having incentives for officers to live in the jurisdictions that they're serving in, I think that could also be a good thing and support some positive change. I believe when a police officer breaks the law, they should be prosecuted. But it needs to be very clearly stated and communicated to the public that does not represent the entire police force. I think that's just critical. And like the rest of those on the call, I do not support defunding the police. I think that's a terrible idea. When I imagine a life without police, it is not a positive image at all. And I think we need to really consider what people are asking for in some of these neighborhoods. From Gallup that said 81% of African Americans, they either want the same amount of policing or more policing in their neighborhood. So we need to be careful not to fall into the extreme rhetoric where we start calling for defunding the police and supporting some of these initiatives that really damages their reputation.
Thank you. So with this next question, we'll start with Lillie. So given that Minnesota is the only state with a divided legislature, what would you do to help promote bipartisan solutions to the state's issues? Lillie. You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
This is Lillie, and I just want to say that if anything, I'm pretty proud of the work that I've been able to do. I picked a House seat I'm literally on the floor. I'm right across the aisle from the chair or the lead, the Capital Investment Committee, Dean Erdahl from Greater Minnesota, and him and I are talking all the time, and we're trying to meet in the middle, if you will. And I think it's possible. I mean, there's a lot of good things that we've been able to do the last couple of years. You know, those are the things that don't always make the news, but we've passed a lot of good legislation. And my legacy committee is a place where people can come and we fight it out. But the bill is a consensus bill, and it's for the betterment of Minnesota. And I'm certain that we can do this as we face the tough things that we're looking at in the next couple of years. I try to build relationships across the aisle. You know, sometimes I get teased about it, but I think it's important. You know, so they'll let me into conversations, and not the inside baseball, but we can work together. There's a lot we can do, and I have friends in the Senate too. And Senator Wiger and Representative Fischer are doing the same thing, and I think our district is well served that way by working with both sides of the aisle. And a lot of our local leaders, you know, might be a Republican or Democrat. We don't care. We just want to get stuff done for the area. And that's what I've tried to do, and I'll continue to do. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, Antonio Nerios.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I'm a big supporter of third parties, obviously being a third party candidate myself. I'm actually reaching out to other third parties as well. The Independence Party, the Libertarian Party. I've reached out to both the Cannabis and Marijuana Party. I don't think that in Minnesota's issues are going to be solved by a two-party system. It's already been shown with the last election, the Cannabis Party and the Marijuana Party reaching major party status. And Minnesota wants to change. The two incumbent parties, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, I don't believe have solved the issue. I personally believe that back in 1970, early 1970s, there wasn't a party affiliation. I would like to see party affiliation actually removed from the ballot, and people actually doing their research on their candidates to see what they support and what they don't support. I think that once I get in office, that I can build those relationships, not only with my background being in the military, but also with some of the stuff I've done, dealing with budgets and whatnot on the military side. I think that that's really all I got. I think that we need more of a voice rather than just a two-party system to solve Minnesota's budget problems, to solve what's going on in our state. I don't need any more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck Wiger.
It is very important that we return to civility in the legislative process. There was a former state representative, Joanne Ward, that did a lot of work in this area, and it started with legislators just having lunch at the Capitol, and actually the Bureau of Mediation was there, and people just talking more about themselves. And the whole idea was to have a better understanding of where we're coming from. When I was chair of education, and this is what I would do if I hopefully return in the majority as a chair, I will have bipartisan involvement. When I chaired education, we had joint subcommittees with members of each party involved. We also respected that people got hearings on their bills. That has not been the case now. So you have to recognize that everybody came with an election certificate and give them that right to the hearing. It's important too to get out into the community with hearings. And I did that not only locally but throughout the state whenever we could. So treating people, one another with respect, a lot of it's just common sense and saying we're going to get it done, and then practicing that. Joint subcommittees, hearing bills, having a transparent process. And as I said, when I was a chair, I operated that way. And when I chaired the committee for education, and Representative McLoon in Eden Prairie was the House Chief Conferee, we were the first committee to come in with an agreement. And we were able to go through a number of issues. It was transparent, but we both were committed to getting results. And I will continue to practice that and be open to additional ideas as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Zick?
Yes. Well, to start with, if you want bipartisan participation, we should have a unicameral legislature where all bills are voted up or down, and that the parties can't hide behind these committees. Mr. Wiger is just not straightforward. When he mentioned he was the chair of the education committee, I've been told by other legislators that if they did not leave certain legislation disappear, their legislation would not be heard by his committee. This is the kind of shenanigans that go on down there. You know, when the third parties or the independent parties wanted to have fusion, where the lesser parties could come together, the two major parties stopped it. They didn't want to give up their power. There is no partisanship down there. You see it all the time. These legislators, like Mr. Wiger, talk a good talk, but they don't walk a good walk. We need a transparent process. We need these legislators not to be able to hide behind these committees. And if we see how these parties treat each other, especially the DFL, close ranks, and then they turn around and blame it on the Republicans. This is all fake positioning. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to remind you that the question is about how you would promote bipartisan solutions to the state's problems. And with that, we will go to Paul Babin.
Excuse me. Yeah, I guess to me the best way is through transparency and that the public's able to understand and see what all elected officials are doing. That should be very public process that we legislate on. I think public interaction is really important too, and engaging the public in the decisions that are being made down at the legislature. Yep. And I believe through my work experience, I've learned to work with lots of different entities to solve problems and come to common ground on how we resolve the issues that are facing us. So just reaching out to the other side and, understanding that we need to compromise. Sometimes there is no compromise, and that's unfortunate, but that's what we need to do. We need to develop relationships within the legislature when I get in there, and hope to work together with the other side so we can do good for the state of Minnesota, not just the party. That's all I got.
Thank you. Peter Fischer?
Thank you. I have done a lot to address and helping make sure that we're more bipartisan. First of all, it starts with local issues. I've worked with our local chamber, with our local communities when issues have come forward, and then working with the area representatives, whether they're Democrat or Republican, and getting bills moved through. When we moved through the bill to save Hugo Rail Line, that was done with Republican representatives and with Republican senators. When we were addressing the issues of water government, was working closely with Senator Chamberlain and the other representatives in the area in a bipartisan way to make sure that we ban TCE, a cancer-causing chemical. When we were dealing with the frivolous ADA lawsuits that were occurring, I was working with our local community, the Chamber of Commerce, and Representative Dennis Smith, and we were able to get legislation through to help address those issues that were focused on small businesses. And this is something that I've continued to do. When we put together the water subcommittee, it was put together in a bipartisan way where it was evenly divided between both parties in both chambers. And one of the things that has come out of that is that when we have legislation come through, we agree on it jointly, and then we work together to get it through. There have been times that where my colleagues on the Republican side in the House have been comfortable enough with me that they have given me major legislation to carry when we've been in the minority because they trusted what I was doing. It's being respectful and being true to your word. Likewise, when we've been in the majority of this past year, I worked very closely with my Republican colleagues on water issues and had them carry some major bills through and help them make sure that we were able to move those bills forward. I'm also doing the same thing on the new joint housing affordability committee that we have out there, working with my Republican colleagues and figuring out where we have the common ground and being able to create the space where we can have good, honest discussions in a safe way, identify the process, and then facilitate outcomes to move our state forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jordan Herzog.
Well, this is a really important question to me. I've just seen over my lifetime how the political conversation and rhetoric has just continued to get more and more angry and malicious. And I would like to see more bipartisan action. And I think the way that starts is you have to build relationships with people that have differing views. One of the things that we treasure here in the United States is the First Amendment. We are able to share our views and we can have discussions and we can have disagreements based on opinions, but we still treat each other as Americans. And unfortunately, I think in politics, and not always at the state level, but definitely at the national level and even in the relationary level in each of our lives, politics has been something that's starting to divide families and divide friendships. So I think engaging with people on the other side and building a friendship, trying to understand where they're coming from is really important. I think there's a reputation in politics that people are not being honest and that people are attacking personally, even though they don't really believe it. And I think that can end by building relationships with people across the aisle and agreeing not to attack personally. So I do echo what a lot of what has been said. Again, we are Americans. We're Minnesotans first.
30 seconds.
Party affiliation should be based on ideas. And I would encourage everybody, whether you're an elected official or running for something, or if you're just listening to this call, get yourself out of an echo chamber and engage people that have differing points of view. You can really sharpen yourself up and learn to love people that have you.
Thank you. So this next question will start with Paul Babin. As we know, the state of Minnesota has a significant racial inequity that has been demonstrated in a number of ways. And the question is, I will just read it, I guess. How will you work to improve racial equity in Minnesota? And we'll get it starting with Paul Babin. Paul?
Well, that's a tough question. I guess one way is we need to learn to listen to people. We need to understand people from the position they're coming from. I'm not so sure the racial inequity is as extreme as it's being portrayed in the media. It's definitely an issue for sure, but I think we need to listen to each other, sit down at a table. We need to go into each other's communities and see firsthand the problems that are plaguing some of these communities. I guess I don't know what more to say. It's just, there needs to be more conversation, understanding, and I don't think the government should is the fix to all that ails us. I think some of it is learning to talk to our neighbors and becoming more civil in our society and understanding each other and building relationships throughout the communities, the different communities in our state. That's about the best I can answer that right now.
Thank you. Bob Zick.
Yes. Well, to start with, stop the DFL war on black families. You know, racial equity needs to come about because all people are treated the same. That you don't create or stop disparity by creating more disparity. When you take groups of people and divide them up, so in order to have a seat at your table, they have to produce votes for you. That has been the history of the DFL party for since Lyndon Johnson created the Great Society. Once you take the value of the person's own initiative away from them and put them on the government dole, you have divided them from the rest of society. Racial equity is when we are all treated the same. You don't solve the problem by more discrimination. You don't solve discrimination by discriminating against other groups or other people. That's the party. That's what the DFL party has pushed out. Racial equity needs to be the American dream taught in the schools, not hate America that's taught in the schools. We need to turn this country around. We need to love this country. Thank you.
And next we have Chuck Wiger.
Yes, we should love our country. We should love one another. There are many disparities. The racial inequities are critical to the healing process, not only in the state, but throughout our country. There are inequities in education, in the job market, in healthcare, and in. And that's not just speculation. It's what the facts show. And so what can we do about it? And each of us can do something. In education, where I've been active, I have been a strong advocate of Ready for K, trying to provide opportunities, especially for disadvantaged students. And we have a number of those programs right here in the district where students can be in a high quality early ed program so that they'll hopefully be ready for K. Because the statistics have shown that there is a higher level of dropouts if you're not white. The chances for your succeeding are less if you are not white. And a lot of this gets back to the education that they may have received, what they were experiencing in the district. And so Ready for K is important. It's important as well to have more teachers of color so that the students can get inspired and teaching from people that look like. We need to have a much better balance, and I've sponsored proposals to provide incentives for teachers of color. And in terms of what we can do, we keep working on the early ed for early intervention programs to help parents. We need to provide additional opportunities and healthcare as well. And I mentioned housing. The statistics, again, are what they are, that ownership is much less.
Thank you. 2 minutes.
We need to continue to work on it.
Thank you. Next, Antonio Nerios.
Well, you know, I don't like to talk about myself too much in a racial sense because I'm multi-ethnic. I'm Hispanic, I'm Native, I'm Greek. I grew up poor over on the Lower East Side, but that's enough of my harp story. I don't want to get into that. What I think is lacking, especially with the incumbents that have been here for years, is actually to start teaching that we're Americans first. We're not a color. We're not a race. We're all Americans. If we can bond people on that first, and then reach off from there, I think that's where it needs to go. I think what we're seeing with the mainstream news right now is that people are seeing our leadership lack. Everybody's getting upset. People are causing riots and fights and starting to, segregate themselves. They're starting to divide themselves into a race and color and everything. And I think it's completely wrong. Knocking door to door in my district here and in other districts, everybody agrees. It doesn't matter what color you are or what anything. Everybody knows there needs to be a change. And I think that change is going to come from somebody from an outside point of view who doesn't want to divide Americans based on race and based on color and start segregating in schools and everything like that. I do believe that the education system needs to be proactive and teach that we're Americans first and we're not a color. It doesn't matter who you are, what color you are, where you came from. We have the American dream to fight for, and that American dream belongs to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're black, rich, white, green. It doesn't matter. All that does is serve to divide Americans. I think that we should start teaching children, especially in K through elementary, that hey, we're Americans first. It doesn't matter your color, and I believe also that in high school you need to graduate with an understanding of the Constitution and how it applies. I don't need any more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Leon Lillie.
Hi, this is kind of the core of, it is the core of why I run for office. I want everybody to do better. All my neighbors. I want everybody, just like my own kids. I want my neighbors' kids to do better. I want everybody to do better. So this is sad to me that we've left some behind, or they're just not getting the same opportunities or succeeding. And isn't that sad in the great state of Minnesota? So that's why I run. Every day I work on this. Just today I was on the phone call, I think I mentioned, with some folks from the Water Council, and we're looking at changing how the council itself works. It's basically made up of the same way it's been for years, but we're trying to broaden that and get seats at the table, maybe a Native American member, or members from our minority community. Having clean water, it's just sad. And it seems like in some of our harder neighborhoods that are also hit by this, the quality of life issues, because the water's not clean and those sort of things. There's an adventure gap. We've got kids that are just not able to get outdoors, and that's what we want to do. That's what I do with our legacy committee. The last couple of years, we've been working on camping, fishing, hunting, getting people out there, canoeing, getting out and having to try to break this adventure gap. Swimming lessons in the last bill this year. A lot of our minority kids can't swim, so we wanted to get them to be able to swim in Minnesota. Our school district's doing a great job, and we're a leader in our own school district, and that's what we want. We want that statewide. We want our kids to. We want all our kids to do better, and I'm proud of the work that our local school district's doing, and we can keep doing that as a state. We had them down there testifying, and we can certainly get them to be the template for the whole state.
Thank you. Jordan Herzog. Jordan? Jordan? We're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Good.
All right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah. So I think this is a really important issue. I think the disparities between ethnicities at the education level is driven by economic disparities as well. So I think in order to improve some of those economic gaps, I would like to see some programs that would maybe have tax-free investment zones in some neighborhoods that are suffering most with the education disparity. Also, I would like to provide parents and students with alternative options to the public school. I think it really has become evident over the years that the public school system, as it currently stands, has failed African American students. And I think in order to improve that, I think we need to encourage the implementation of additional charter schools that can actually go into neighborhoods. We do have open enrollment laws in Minnesota, but the frustration with that is there's a geographical disadvantage to students that might come from a single parent household, and they can't drive them out to a school district that might be more fitting. And so I'd like to see an expansion of charter schools. I'd like to see additional scholarship opportunities provided to people to provide or to attend potentially private schools. I don't think that should just be something that wealthy people are allowed to experience. Also, I do think it's so important when kids are at the high school level to encourage them to take career paths that are going to provide a income for them in the future. I think in this country, we have stigmatized the trades to a certain extent. I think it is getting better, but trades are just an incredible way to make a living. And I think even in some of these neighborhoods where kids aren't performing very well, to encourage maybe going into the trades instead of telling them they all have to go get a 4-year bachelor's degree. I think encouraging people to attend community colleges instead of, again, trying to pursue a prestigious bachelor's degree at a private college. Doing these things, I think, will help to close the gap that we see right now between African American students and other ethnicities. But yeah, this is an important issue, and I think there's a lot of options that need to be considered to rectify it, certainly.
Thank you. Peter Fischer.
Thank you. Racial inequities that we have throughout our country are large and serious. Where this has been driven home to me is for the last 13 years, I've worked with youth who are homeless, primarily people of color in North Minneapolis and also on the east side of St. Paul. And some of the things that have bothered me so much is as I take a look at the way the system works today, is if you're white, it works all right. If you're a person of color, it does not. They're at a disadvantage. I've seen it too often. In the private sector, it's not unusual that for the same jobs, for the same capabilities, a person of color is paid less than a person who is not of color, who's of the majority. I have had youth who have come up to me who have told me that they do not feel safe when they go out into the suburban communities to work their jobs. They're afraid they're not going to come home alive. These are the problems that we have in our system because we have demonized too often people of color. If we're going to solve the problems, we have to recognize that there are a lot of things that have happened in our history that we have forgotten. Example would be the race riots that happened in Tulsa in 1920, where an entire black community, one of the richest in the country, was wiped out at the time by the white majority because they feared the black success. These are the ugly truths that are in our history, and we have to face those. Going forward, we have to make sure that as we're dealing with the problems, whether it's in housing, whether it's in education or employment, is sitting down and taking a look and meeting the people who have been left behind and saying, what do you folks need? What would you like to see? And involve them in helping create the solutions as we go forward. They've been able to see what the problems are, and we need to make sure that they're engaged and make sure that as we're looking at the problems out there, we're looking at it through a racial equality lens. And once we start doing that and understanding where they're at and meeting them where they're at, we then have the opportunity to figure out what the barriers are to start removing those barriers to move everybody forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So these issues are very complex, and we might as well just march on with another complex one. And so with this question, we will start with Jordan Herzog. Do you support universal health care? Why or why not?
Yes, thank you. No, I do not support universal health care. I do like the American system of being able to choose your health care from private insurers. I think we do have problems with the price of insurance. I think a lot of people have been priced out for a variety of different reasons. I think there are things that can be done to fix that issue and at least start to make progress. One thing that the state of Minnesota has implemented is a reinsurance program where basically certain people that might have extra high costs because of maybe a pre-existing condition, a portion of their premium is covered in order to help them be able to afford that insurance and then not make the pool more expensive for everybody else that's a part of it. I think Medicare needs to remain separate. I think that's something that our seniors have paid into their whole life, and I don't want to see everybody go into the same pool where either taxes are going to have to be raised severely, or there's going to have to start to be cuts in elective surgeries or things that might not be deemed necessary by the government. I am very skeptical anytime the government would take over an industry altogether. I don't think that is a good idea. I think America has led the way in innovation, and I'd like to see it continue to be that way. I don't believe the profit motive's a bad thing. I think the profit motive can help us to make things more efficient, and I think it can help us to increase competition. One thing in particular that I'd like to see happen is I would like to see medical billing be legislated where costs would have to be shared with the patient up front so they can do better budgeting and decide, what services they're going to take. And sometimes there are things that are not necessarily required in a medical procedure, but they're not told about the cost, and then they get a surprise bill later. I would like to see those costs provided to patients up front. That's one thing that I'd like to see implemented immediately.
Thank you. Peter Fischer.
Okay, thank you. I think I do support a universal health care, say a Medicare for all option. And it's because I see that the current system has failed us. And there is so much waste that I see in the current free market system that it's very disturbing. Some of the instances I've seen is I know that there are clinics that they employ 2 or 3 people, and all those people do is resubmit claims that the insurance company rejected, that the insurance company should have paid the first time around. When you take a look at 3 people being tied up in that type of situation, that could have gone to providing care services. I've heard from numerous doctors and nurses complaining about that. Each insurance company does things differently, and they spend almost half their time just dealing with insurance companies, finding out what procedures they're going to pay for people. Waste in the system, waste in the free market system that does not allow for efficient health care. I've seen the same thing at the current nonprofit that I work with. We have a clinic that provides services for youth between the ages of 11 and 24. And the amount of money that we have to spend to purchase software to interchange with all the insurance companies and the staffing that has to go with it, we spend almost as much money on that as we do on trying to address the needs of homeless youth. If we had a more efficient system, we would have better healthcare outcomes, people would have better accessibility, the waste in the private system would be flushed out, and organizations, nonprofit organizations like ours, could deliver more services that would help the most vulnerable people in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Paul Babin. Paul?
Yep, I'm here.
Good.
Yeah, I would echo, Jordan's points a lot. I don't believe in universal health care. I don't believe getting the government more involved in our health care system is the solution. It's the problem. It's just they create more intervention, create more layers of bureaucracy, which costs more money, which drives costs up more because all those extra mandates and things, they cause more, just create more money that needs to be used to support these mandates and all of the programs that they put in place. I just don't believe the government should be involved in it. They just cause higher premiums and kind of falling through on this one. I'm not a pro on this, but I know that's what I believe. I don't believe in it. I believe the government's part of the problem in this. And I think the private sector, we should get out of the way of the private sector and create competition in the marketplace for healthcare and the premiums. And that's where I stand on that.
Thank you. Bob Zick.
Yes. Well, I'm still looking at the Constitution of the United States, and I still haven't found where health care is an item that is universal health care or any health care that is a right. That we're going down this road of socialism. When I was a little boy, it cost $5 to go to the doctor. And then came the Second World War, and of course there was a pay freeze during the war. So the way they got around the pay freeze is they handed out benefits, and one of the benefits was health care. Now, myself, as a retired union member, my union negotiated with our employers for health care, and I'm an advocate that health care is not a right, that health care is something that you earn. And I would advocate that all employers have to provide a certain minimum level of health care, and the underwriter of that could be a government entity, but that people that work part-time get part-time health care. But it's not that everybody is granted health care as a birthright. We can't afford that. Let people reward themselves by having self-worth and being in the position of going to work.
2 minutes,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you. Next, Chuck Wiger.
I support health care, including dental care, for all. Every Minnesotan, every American should be able to get the health care they need when they need it at a price they can afford. For years, insurance companies have charged too much. Waste, policies full of holes, and coverage was easily denied or revoked. The Affordable Care Act changed that, providing families with a new and greater measure of health security. But that act has been under attack, and there is much to be done. We need to guarantee coverage to every American as a matter of right, encourage healthy behavior and protect others from unhealthy behaviors, and allow people to make their own health care choices. It's a national issue in Minnesota. There needs to be a renewed bipartisan effort. There is a group called United States of Care. You can go to that website. There's bipartisan involvement, and they are looking at ways of controlling costs, and they are working also with the Wilder Foundation and a number of groups. But bottom line, guaranteed health care for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Antonio Nerios.
Am I on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't support universal health care. I don't support universal dental care. What I do believe is that health care and dental care is an opportunity right. It's the right of every citizen to go out and achieve it. What I don't believe is that my taxes should continuously come out of my paycheck and pay for somebody else who I don't know who it is. I believe that an individual should be able to reach out and contact a business and say, I would like to do business with you, and do that. I think a way to solve most of these problems is small business. Allow small business to flourish, get more small businesses involved. That will actually grow the opportunity for everybody in America to have health care, to have dental care. I think the current incumbents lack leadership because they've been there for years and they've been creating these laws and policies for the healthcare industry and for the health insurance industry for these companies to jump hoops through. And then what they do is they push it back and forth on each other. I think the companies push it back on the lawmakers push it back on the companies, and it goes back and forth. The only way to solve this is to get small businesses back in the game, small businesses to run healthcare as it should be. It should be an opportunity for everybody. I also believe that the military, we all served. Sorry, I heard something, but I'll skip it. I also believe the military, we all served, and we should have the right for obtaining that health care if we earned it. I don't need more time right now. I lost my train of thought. But, yeah, that'll be it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Leon Lillie.
Hi, I actually support universal health care and dental care for all. I really just, in all honesty, I highly doubt it's going to be up there at one of our key items next legislative session. We're facing a huge deficit and big issues, you know, and that we've mentioned education, some of the others. We're going to be facing those. But I do support universal health care. I was lucky enough to spend some time in another country when I was in college. It's a long time ago, but you know, people aren't dying in England. People aren't dying north of our country in Canada. You know, we're one of the, I think we're the only country that's of our status to not have universal health care. And it's sad. People are losing their houses because of health care costs. It changes their lives and they have to make, you know, decisions they shouldn't have to. I work with folks. I didn't mention my other life. I work at an airline, and there's a lot of folks that I work with that have a plumbing job or own a business, and they have to do these other jobs to have the health care. In the same case with a lot of our farmers in the state, they're doing these other jobs in the city, maybe driving bus to get health care. And isn't that sad that they can't focus on the farming or the being a plumber or whatever? We've heard a couple of different people talk about starting small business. So it's kind of sad that they can't focus on that and make good money doing those things, but it comes down to healthcare. And I just think it's fair that everybody in our state and our country would have it. But I highly doubt that it's likely that it's something that we're going to pass soon.
Thank you. So we have been going for, believe it or not, an hour and a half. And so we are ready for our closing statements. I thank all of the candidates for their thoughtful and interesting answers to all these complex questions and issues that face all of Minnesota. So remember, you have 2 minutes for your closing remarks, and we're going to go in reverse order to the opening statements. So we will start with our candidates for Minnesota House District 43B, and we'll start with Antonio Nerios.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I'd also thank the Minnesota League of Women Voters for putting on this debate. I think it was good. I think it was entertaining. I think we learned a lot. I'd like to reiterate some of the things that we chatted about here. Mainly police reform. I think police reform comes from the front lines, and it should be outward educated, not from the politicians pushing down. I believe in term limits as well. I believe that small businesses will help build back Minnesota, considering how the current state of our state right now is the coronavirus and pandemic, and it's eaten up so many small businesses. And I think that that should be a prime focus for anybody who's running for politics right now. I think in order to bridge the inequality, if you will, for a racial divide, is that we need to start teaching people we're Americans first, especially through K through elementary and in high school as well. With that kind of knowledge, I think the kids coming into the future, coming into politics or whatever industry they're going to choose for life, will build lasting relationships and will build a stronger America. If you vote for me, I promise to stick by my word. I promise to push for term limits. I promise to do what I say. I'm a man of my word, and I'll keep it. Thank you for the opportunity again, and I'll relinquish the rest of my time.
Thank you. Again, for House District 43B, Leon Lillie.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting us on. Again, this is a great opportunity for us to really essentially meet the folks that are running against us or running to serve the same area that we are. It's nice to, hear from Antonio and know about his military service. Thank you for that, sir. And Jordan, I'm excited to hear about your new baby. And I remember that days when my kids were young, and I just know how important that is and what a great life blessing. But I'm really been honored to serve and to represent this area. Our communities are unique. We're suburban. We're first ring suburbs. We're second ring suburbs. But we're unique. We have many good things going on that we need to be proud of, and I proudly represent that the state. But there's things that we need to fight for, and I go down to the legislature and work across the line, and I mean that. I really do, and I'm proud of the efforts. I'd like anybody to challenge me on that I don't try to work with everybody. But I'll work with our local leaders to find out what the mayors want and the councils and the cities need, and try to bring that forward to the state. I try to be a positive voice for our area. I think that the team, Senator Wiger and Fischer, we've been really lucky. We've got each different strengths, and then we can bring to the table. But I think I'm very proud of the work we've done, and I'm ready to fight as we face some difficult times, and to be a positive voice for our area. I love the state. I love North St. Paul, Maplewood, and Oakdale, and I'm proud to serve, and I feel very humbled to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final candidate for House District 43B, Jordan Herzog.
Well, again, thank you to the League of Women Voters. We really all appreciate your willingness to put this on despite all of the complications going on with COVID-19. That's really where I want to focus is right now what we're facing as a result of this crisis. We went from being in a surplus position in our budget to now we're facing a pretty major deficit as a result of the lack of tax revenue coming in from the shutdowns. My proposal and what I will stand firm on is I will resist any additional taxes that would be pushed. Right now, we have the fourth highest corporate tax rate in the United States. We have the fourth highest top tax bracket in the United States for income taxes. And I don't think we have room to increase that if we want to continue having a strong, robust business economy here. There are serious things that we're going to have to decide, and the government needs to share in the sacrifice. So we need to look for areas where we can cut costs, where we can save money, and where we can be innovative, just like everybody in the private sector is being forced to do right now. I am asking for your vote on November 3rd. I think I'd be a good candidate for this job. I love listening to people, going out and knocking on doors and getting to know my neighbors and district residents has just been a joy for me, and hearing their opinions. And there's a lot of frustration out there, and I think we need to do something to resolve some of these issues. And I would be very happy to be the representative to fight for that and to listen and to do what I say I'm going to do. Thank you again.
Thank you. We'll now hear closing statements from our candidates for House District 43A, and we'll start with Peter Fischer.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the Roseville Area League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight. Thank you to everyone who's been watching the forum and asking the questions. I also want to thank everybody who's running and who's been part of this forum and providing their feedback and thoughts. A lot of those issues that have been raised out there are very important to us all. And I think some of the important things that we have to remember is that we are in challenging times. The current pandemic and murder of George Floyd has laid bare the deeply rooted inequalities between our communities, our neighbors, and the need for big changes. And we've had others out there who are using the opportunities who are more interested in dividing us instead of uniting us. And it's important for us to come together, because it's when we come together that we're able to solve the problems out there. One of the things I recall is that if you want peace, work for justice. And one of the best ways to come for justice is coming from the base root where all of us Minnesotans come from. We all want a good life and a better future for all of our families and for our neighbors. I will work for things that we know will ensure the well-being of our communities, affordable health care, strong public education, jobs with wages and benefits to support a family, clean air and water, a public safety system, and that protects all with no exceptions. It has been an honor to serve everyone in this community. I ask for your vote in November. If you have questions and would like to talk to me, my cell phone is 651-307-1625, and I would welcome to hear from anybody. Thank you for the opportunity and have a great evening.
Thank you. The second candidate for House District 43A, Paul Babin.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on, and thank you for the citizens that are out there listening and giving me the opportunity to participate in this forum. I understand we live in uncertain times at this moment, some of which no one could have predicted. We all have been impacted by the chaos and epidemic of these times. We have seen record unemployment, destruction of many small businesses via rioting, bad policies under Democratic leadership. We have seen the House of Reps refuse to end the emergency powers of its governor and restore the rights of the people to worship, engage in commerce, attend weddings, funerals, to name a few. We will face more challenges ahead with deficits and continued impacts of the epidemic. This is why I believe we need different leadership that will stand up to represent you, the people. We need leadership that understands the importance of the individual over the needs of a bigger government. My experience has given me the understanding of working together with multiple entities to achieve common sense solutions. I will work on building relationships to support accountable public safety and law enforcement, not defund it. Your right to be safe in your homes, your person, and our cities. To have fiscally responsible and accountable government, affordable health care, lower taxes, better roads and bridges, grow small business, voter integrity, quality education, and equal opportunity for all. I don't have all the answers to our problems, but I look forward to the opportunity to listen and learn to your concerns and put those to action to make a better government that works for the people. I look to be useful, not important. Please support me to return the House to the people, and together we can build a better future for us all. It would be an honor to serve you, and thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear closing statements from the two candidates who are with us tonight. For Senate District 43, we'll start with Bob Zick.
Thank you. Government has not missed a lick. The private sector has taken the hurt and the brunt of this virus. Closed churches, closed restaurants, everything's been shuttered by our government. My opponent, Chuck Wiger, has 30 years as a big government, big spending, more government, regulations, and control. Partisan, special interest, career politician. My goal is to represent you, to listen to your thoughts and concerns. Unlike my opponent, whose whole life has been to be the legislator of special interests, not the safety of the children, parents, and community. Go to the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board website and see where he gets his campaign money, who he is beholden to. My campaign money comes from only individuals like you. My opponent has harmed people and been a failure. Whereas my 26 years of reporting on local state government has always been correct. For the last 30 years, I have testified at school board meetings, city council meetings, and at the state legislature. When I said the city of Maplewood was closing 5 of their fire stations, the elected officials called me a liar. Maplewood will now end up with only 2 fire stations and shuttered parks. It is time for change. We need a new direction. We need to move away from chaos and failed, out-of-touch government toward people-powered solutions based on tradition American values. The contrast between me and my opponent is clear. Carefully consider the issue. Public safety, preserving family business, saving the Vento Trail, local control of education, civil and Second Amendment rights. My opponent supports chopping down thousands of trees on a dubious $500 million bus road through residential's backyard. I am asking for your vote this fall. Remember, Bob Zick is on your side. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second candidate for the Senate District 43, Chuck Wiger.
Thank you to the League for sponsoring tonight's forum, and to the candidates and their families, peace be with you, and to everyone for watching. Viewers, I deeply appreciate the honor of representing you in our area. Throughout my public service, I have always actively communicated and worked with the community. Together, we get results. Several examples. Banning TCE this session, the cancer-causing chemical. Minnesota now is the first state in America to do this. We worked with hundreds of local neighbors to get this done. Great job, and I want to thank Representative Fischer on that. East Metro Public Safety Training Center, 22 communities now have a training facility. The firefighters we worked with, Representative Lillie and others, were a part of that. The Tubman Center on domestic violence training prevention. They have a whole bunch of programs to help families get their life back together. We worked with the sisters at the monastery. The Vets Memorial Park in North St. Paul, working with veterans to get that. By the way, we'll pay tribute to POWs in the march tomorrow. The Lake Links Trail, relocating Bruntrup Farm, much more. These efforts have been recognized with many different awards, and we appreciate that, but it's on behalf of the community. And I do appreciate being endorsed by 20 groups representing thousands of district residents, from small business to environmental groups to education. Looking ahead, COVID-19 is priority one. I'm guided by data and science, not political expediency. We will get through this. I support a robust bonding bill, investing in infrastructure, creating thousands of jobs. And let's get that done soon. I believe Minnesotans deserve great schools, quality health care, affordable prescriptions, and a clean energy future to preserve our environment. Please call or text me anytime at 651-770-0283. Thanks for the honor of representing you. Together we will accomplish more.
Thank you. In fact, thank you all. I would like to remind those listening to this candidate forum that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. And sponsorship of the forum is not an endorsement by the League for any candidate. I would also like to highlight and thank the Voter Service Committee for Roseville League of Women Voters, especially Cecilia Warner, our fabulous timer today, and Teresa Wernicke, and the fabulous Maplewood technical expertise from Joe Sheeran, Michael Folds, and Kevin, our recorder. I would also particularly like to thank the candidates for their participation in this League of Women Voters sponsored virtual forum. I would like to acknowledge and thank the candidates who are serving their community by their willingness to participate in the democratic process by running for office. This forum will be aired in its entirety on your local public cable channel, on Facebook, and all of the other social media things that all of the cities and states now use. And please check those venues for air times. Every vote does count. This election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. If you have decided to vote in person, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wear your masks. It's mandated. So we want you all to stay well, and thank you all for participation, and thank you for listening.